Welcome to the Unity Guides Expert Interview Series. My name is Clayton Stenson. I'll be your host today. This series is brought to you by Unity Guides Incorporated, where we help develop Unity within companies running on the EOS system. We do this through fractional integrator services and relationship coaching for the visionary and integrator. And the reason I started this interview series is that I've met some pretty amazing people in recent years, and the conversations we've had have been valuable to me. So I thought I should share them with other people to add value to them. So today's guest is Justin Bowling. Justin is an EOS implementer in Colorado. So welcome, Justin.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here. Hoping we'll talk a little hockey maybe too.
Maybe. We'll see. Today's topic is how do I use the VTO to keep me disciplined, both in my business and personally. So Justin, why did you suggest this topic?
Yeah, no, I think the VTO, so the Vision Traction Organizer, as a tool holistically, it puts all the main pieces of your business into one document, right? And I think taking that then from a business standpoint, right, you can align as a team. But then I think the personal side, there's a really cool aspect to doing that same thing in almost a life plan or a strategic plan of what you want to do. And I've done it with one of my kids as well at this point. And It's just cool, like to have that conversation, right? And to start to have them dream of what they want to do. So I think it's just super impactful to start thinking down the line, both personally and professionally.
Yeah. How old's the kid that you did it with?
He's 12. He'll be 13 in August.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about that. What kinds of things came up for him on his VTO?
Yeah. So I think it was December, January, we did it. And so he's 12 and we started to go through it and we did his core values, right? And that kind of stuff. And like, he's super into Jordan stuff and Nikes. And so like nice shoes was one of his core values. Right. And so like cool stuff like that, but you start to see their personality kind of come out. Right. And they start to question like, well, is faith part of my core values? Is that a core value? Right. Like, so you have these really cool conversations with them. And then the other cool part was like, we got to the 10-year plan, right? What's your 10-year target? His name's Kai, and his dream is to be in the NBA, right? And so he Googled, well, what is the average age of a rookie in the NBA? And it was like 21, 22, something like that. And he was just like, whoa, like 10 years, I'm supposed to be in the NBA, right? Like, so his wheels start turning, right? And he starts to go, like his eyes get big and he gets excited and then scared. He's like, well, I can't do that. Right. And so we have this really cool journey of a conversation going to help him, get to where he wants to go if that's ultimately what he wants to do in 10 years.
That's really good. So what jumps out at me from that is all of a sudden it goes from a pipe dream, right? Like something that, is so far off that one day, I want to be this, to now it's like, okay, breaking it down. Like, am I serious about this? What are the steps? What do I need to do in the next 90 days? Which I think back to years ago, I worked kind of part-time when I was in university and I sold Cutco cutlery. I don't know if you're familiar. That was 20 years ago now. But I remember sitting down with my assistant manager and she was, talking about, like, this is right when I first started. She's like, if you want to sell $30,000 in knives and, like setting goals. And she drew two things on the whiteboard. She drew a big stick man on the right side and she drew a tiny one on the left side. And she said, this one on the left side is who you are now. And this one on the right side is who you want to be one day.
Yeah.
And she said, if you focus on the big one, you're probably going to be overwhelmed and not take it because it's too big, right?
Yep.
Like in the NBA, it's too big, right?
Yep.
Like it's like, holy, I'm 12.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I want to be there, then what are the little steps along the way, right? And she did that for me and broke it down for me with Cutco. And it's like, okay, what do I need to do right now in order to accomplish 30,000? And it's like, I need to, learn the script. I need to, make my list. I need to, make 10 calls a day or whatever. And so I just followed this system this plan that we set out together. And I did it. I sold $30,000 Cutco in 3 months.
Wow.
It was my first sales job that I'd ever. I was quiet and shy, and it was like a big, challenge for me. Step out of my comfort zone and do it. But I think because we broke it down, it became manageable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, and you're spot on, because I think that for him too, and even in business, right? Like if we think, hey, our goal is to be $100 million company, or our goal is to get to the NBA, right? It is overwhelming. It's the whole gap in the gain concept from Ben Hardy, Dan Sullivan, right? And if we focus on the ideal and we compare ourselves to being in the NBA at 12 or having $100 million company when we're just starting, we're always going to fail, right? And we're never then going to wake up every day and be excited to achieve it. But when we look back and we go, okay, well, I'm at $1 million.
Yeah.
However long ago I was at zero.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing pretty good, right? You measure the backward side of that too, right? And you say, and for him, it's like you got to the 3-year part of that VTO, and that was cool too, because he's like, 3 years, I'll be a freshman in high school.
Right.
And he's like, he starts to go envision in his head. He goes, well, I should probably be on varsity or junior varsity, I would think. Well, I would probably need to have a GPA of this. I'd probably need to be able to run a mile in this, right? Like he starts to put all these pieces together, right? And then starts to envision and break it down himself, right? And he'd never done that process. He just sat there and watched, Giannis Antetokounmpo was his favorite player, watched him play basketball, and goes, "Yeah, I want to do that. That looks great.
That looks cool."
Right?
He makes whatever for 30 minutes, whatever.
Right. And so it's like to see all the other stuff, and then the process of that too that goes into it is like is super cool to, as from a family and a dad standpoint, it's super cool to have that conversation. But I think it translates to business too. Like my hope is for him is it translates to whatever he wants to do in life. Whether that's the NBA, he can achieve it if he wants. If that changes for him, he can utilize this kind of a tool in whatever he pursues, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. What also comes to mind is, when you implement EOS or begin the process of implementing EOS as the visionary or owner, you might have that, 10-year goal on your mind. But it's not necessarily your team's, you know what I mean? Like it's in your head.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the beauty, just like it's beautiful when your son starts to like make connections and start taking action and processing what actually needs to happen. I would imagine it's similar. Maybe the first time implementing EOS and seeing your leadership team, all of a sudden the lights start going on. It's like, okay, well, we want this, and starting to think and process. Okay, well, we need to work backwards, and we should, if I'm there, then me as the sales manager say like, we need this, and so I need to, and the wheels start to not just again a pipe dream that's in my head, right? It's now getting rooted into the core leadership team and so on. So what?
Well, and that's why we work within EOS. We work with the leadership team. Right. If you work just with the visionary or the entrepreneur, the owner, right, there's a massive gap in communication, right? Those people need to be bought in on that conversation, right? So oftentimes when I go into some of those first sessions with a client, they'll be like, oh, we already have core values. We already have our mission statement. We already know our 10-year target. Okay. Well, you, Clayton, as a visionary may know that. Does your team know that? Is your team bought in on that?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Well, how many times have you told them? Right? Like you have to have that conversation so that they can, like you said, they can be bought in. So they can have their own mindset come into this, and it's a collective then idea and dream, rather than Clayton just coming in saying, boom, this is what we're gonna do, on board or off board. Right. And it's like that's not how you build the culture, right? That's not how you build a team that then when you're not there, right, and you're not the one driving it and pushing it, nothing's going to get done then, right? Then you have this whole other group of people that is on this boat and going in the same direction as you, and that's when you see, right, you see the power and the speed of some of these companies getting to where they want to get.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. I think that's what visionaries will do outside of EOS, is that just drive it. Like, come on, let's go. But it's much more effective to have other people owning it as their own.
Yeah.
I remember my first EOS visionary at one point. We went for lunch or something, and he's like, "Oh, Clayton, it's so refreshing that if I'm not involved in the company, things are improving and growing because of your involvement and your contributions." And in retrospect, like, we self-implemented. I didn't know anything about EOS other than what I read in Traction. I didn't know there was actors like you. I just read the book and started doing it. So in retrospect, we weren't, we probably didn't have the team bought in as much as we should have, or could have, but we were still making a lot of progress. It was a lot of fun. You've really got me thinking about my kids now. I've done something similar with my wife. Right? We sit down at the beginning of the quarter, and it's the beginning of the quarter right now, and we're going to be in San Diego for the EOS conference next week. My wife's going without the kids. So we need to block some time and kind of plan our quarter, but we would set like one priority, one rock for our family. And it was like, our kids are 7, 5, and 3. So I remember a few years ago, a couple of years ago, one of the rocks was potty training, right? The youngest, right? That sounds weird, right? But that was like, okay, this quarter we gotta, focus on that and work together to get that accomplished, right? And it's been helpful. Or when we move to a new city at one point, it's like, okay, we need to find a church, we need to volunteer, we need to join a small group, we need to. It was all around like get planted inside a community where we could flourish, and we did that very effectively. And now we're thriving in a great church and building great relationships. So So people watching, they might be working with an implementer, or they might be self-implementing. So you just tell us a little bit about the VTO and how you work through it, or any advice you have for it.
So how that tool works, and honestly, like, it's something that we give away freely because it is so impactful, right? Like, you can use it with your kid, you can use it in your marriage, you can use it in your side business, right? You can use it for anything, because the goal of that tool is to ask those 8 questions, right? What are your core values? What is your core focus? Your 10-year target, your marketing strategy, your 3-year, your 1-year, your rocks, your issues list. Ask those 8 questions, right? And align whatever that leadership team looks like, right? And it's forcing the teams to have those conversations, right? So even doing that with your kid, or doing it in your marriage, or doing it in a business, that's one of the things I think people overlook, and they don't realize when they're doing it. They feel as though they're just trying to answer a question and get to a conclusion, right? Because we're wired that way from a school standpoint or education standpoint. And what I always challenge my clients to do in those moments is every so often I'll say, okay, take a step back, like, take a breath, look what we just did. Like, all 5 of you just agreed on your core values, like every single one of them. And they're like, wow, yeah, we did, right? Like, and they then get to revel in the work that they did. And it doesn't just seem like an action or a task or something to just move on to the next step. Right? You have to enjoy those moments and realize and say, okay, yeah, we did. And this is cool. Like, then they start to realize they're building something, right? Rather than just taking the next to-do list. Okay, next, what's next? Right. Let's move on. Okay. Core focus. Okay. Right. But now they start to go, oh, and like you said, the light bulbs start to go off in their own heads. Right. And it was the same with my son. It was super cool to allow him to sit there and wrestle with those questions, right? What are my core values as a 12-year-old? I didn't know what my core value were. They were probably Mountain Dew, Sour Patch Kids, video games, and soccer, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like those are my core values, right? And he came up with things like his faith and shoes and all these things that are super important to him, right? Which was, for me, it was fascinating to see and learn that that's what's inside of him. And it's the same thing in a business. Like, so taking that moment to step back, I think oftentimes people will miss that opportunity to celebrate, right? And I wouldn't do it on every single one, but depending how difficult some of those paths are to get there, man, to celebrate some of those and those big wins and say, man, look what you guys just did. Right. Or look, when you get to a 10-year target, right? I have a buddy whose client is, I think it's something like feed a million families or something like that. And it's like, when everybody agreed, he goes, everybody kind of sat there and was like,
dang,
wow, that's big. Right. Like, and then let it sit in the impact of what they're choosing to chase. Right. And then that's the cool part where everybody starts, then it's bigger than a business. Then it's bigger than whatever, you know? So
that's powerful. If you can get a core focus that is bigger than the business, especially in this day and age, like I think, maybe decades ago, people just wanted to go to work and work. As long as they got a paycheck, they're happy.
Right.
But I don't think it's that way anymore with young people, right? Like they be a part of something. People desire to be a part of something greater than themselves. And I think maybe faith was that thing, and a faith community was that thing more so in the past, like especially in Canada, faith isn't as big a deal, right? Up here. But I think people still crave to be a part of something bigger than themselves, right? So you have an opportunity to find that thing, that people can really sink their teeth into and be like, dang, like that's
right.
Feed a million people or friends. I can't remember what you said. That's incredible, right? And not only is that incredible internally, but it's incredible for recruiting, right? It's incredible for marketing, and you're gonna have like when you interview somebody and you tell them that, right? Are they gonna want to be a part? Probably, and like combine that with your core values. Right. I remember a quick story. So my original EOS visionary, he had done this work, and I don't know if he did it with other people in the team before I was there, if he just did it himself. But when I got promoted to integrator, he gave me traction, and he said, "Read." He's like, "You promoted me," and I'm like, "What's that? Like, what are you talking about?" He gave me the book Traction, and I read it. And I was reading the vision chapter, and I was like, oh, core values. Do we have core values? And then I went on our website, and I'd worked there for 3 years. And I went on our website, and I found we had core values.
Right.
And I was like, oh, cool. Like we should, talk about these. Right. But that's the danger of doing it in a vacuum. Without other people involved and not sharing them, is that they're just yours. Right. They're not really your companies.
Well, and I think that's really key what you said, right? And we teach that in the process, right? Of saying there's a moment where you roll that out and you start to, we call it the shared by all, right? And you start to communicate these core values and your goals and your mission and your core focus, all these things, and you start to put them out to the team, right? And one of the things that we always say, and there's interesting fact change on this, it takes 7 times for any one person to hear something, truly hear it and embody it, right? And become it. So even you, when you go on and you read those core values for the first time, it took you another 6 times to really read them and talk about them and understand them before you could actually become them or agree to become them, right? And now with social media, they're saying it's upwards of 20 to 30 times that,
because you have to dropping,
right? Because you have to trust the source, right? Like, we're getting so much information, right? So that said, like, you have to communicate that outwardly, because here's the catch then. Okay, you have this group of 5, 6, 7 people on the leadership team, right? And I ask this question all the time when we get done with the VTO. Okay, we've done this amazing work. Great job, everybody, right? And then who else in the company needs to know this? And it goes silent for a little while, and they go, oh, well, how do we do that? Who do we talk, right? Like, but you have to start doing that quarterly meetings or emails, or you have to start getting those things in front of people, right? So that they understand where you're going as a company, right? I think there's a stat in where it's like 50% of people don't understand where the company is going, something to that effect. That's pretty mind blowing, right? To say that many people don't understand. And then I think the digger digs deeper, and it's like 1 out of 3 people don't understand what their task has to do with where the company's going, right? Things like that. Like then, as you're saying, like that's your purpose when you're getting up and going to work. And people want to know they're doing something for the greater good, right? Whether that's a million families being fed or whether that's to build a $50 million company or to get the MBA, right? You want to know that you're a part of something and that it's feeding into something that is bigger, right? And that your task, big or small, is aligned with where the company is going, right?
Yeah, that's good. And then that, back to my Cutco experience, right? That million families is the big stick man.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then the little stick man is today. And now I'll just move into a different part of the VTO. It's like the 1 year plan, the 9-day plan, right? Like what is the next step? What is the make my list? Learn the presentation. What are those little things that will move us towards that? And then it's powerful when you start banging those off. You hit 80% plus of those rocks every quarter. You start feeling that momentum coming. It's like, this is cool, and I know what my part is in it, and people aren't going to leave. When you're making progress, and they're part of it, and and they're checking things off. Like great example, recently within my fractional client right now, I was working with one of the department heads because he was really a bottleneck, right, within his department, because everyone was coming to him for things. And I said, well, let's sit down and we can chat about the accountability chart within your department, and who we can, elevate and give a role to. And so we identified this one guy who maybe wasn't in a leadership role, but recognized that he was the leader.
Yeah.
Right. Like people are looking to him for leadership. He's been there long enough, and he's got all the right attributes to step into a bigger role. So we promoted him and put 3 people reporting to him to release the bottleneck, so that head of that department, could focus on bigger things, like focus on strategy, focus on estimating, and, making sure that we're nailing it. Right. And it was beautiful to see that guy, because now all of a sudden he's like, I'm a part of this. Like I can contribute. And he said that the department head said that first week they just killed it. Like they had to, hit targets every day, and they were finishing. It too, because these guys were, all of a sudden a bigger part of something. And I think we underestimate the potential in people, and we have to give them something to follow. Like a direct go and clarity on their role, like you said. And how they say there's studies out there that say that, I can't remember the percentage, but it's a high percentage of people are disengaged at work. Right. So I see EOS as an opportunity to give people reason and passion for their work. Right? And the VTO is really where it starts.
Well, and this reminds me, you've probably heard this before, but we say this a lot in EOS too. Vision without traction is hallucination, right? Like people can have this great idea, right? Which is awesome. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this in the software industry, and he goes, there's so many amazing software engineers that have these great ideas, but they are fearful, or whatever the reason is, of one, taking the leap into entrepreneurism. And then 2, he goes, there's so many of us just humanistically that then have a hard time, like you said, like even with your example, a hard time of letting go of those things and trusting X person to go and do this. But that's where you see the difference between companies that scale, right, and companies that hit that ceiling and can't move past, right? So that ability to gain the traction on a regular basis, that 90-day execution strategy where you're hitting and completing 80% of those rocks, like that's the difference. You have to be able to recognize those moments and say, okay, hey, I can't do all of this. I need some help. What can I get rid of on my plate? Right. And solve the problems so that you can get the same things done. Because then it does exactly what you said, right? It breathes new energy into that department, team, or company or family, right? And it's like, whoa, okay, one, they recognize me. Two, they trust me.
Yeah.
And three, like I'm a really big part of this. Like, cool. Like I'm gonna work my butt off now, and I'm gonna do that because I feel honored and cared for and respected. And I feel like most likely you're now exemplifying as my leader the core values and the mission that you were telling me about before.
Yeah. 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 That's really good. It's really good. It's been really cool to watch what's happened. Like this is only in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And now that's what we're trying to do throughout the organization is identify people that are awesome and are utilized. And one thing that I like to say is that, we get their body and most of their mind by default because they want a paycheck.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
But get their heart.
Yep.
Right. And their effort when we give them a vision and a
right. Yep.
Right. And then you'll see the true potential of people. Right. I'm so thankful that in my journey, different leaders gave me that opportunity. Right. Because I wouldn't be where I was if someone wouldn't have said, you know what, that Clayton guy, I think he can lead this department, or he can lead this team at church or whatever. A lot of my leadership journey actually happened in my church, where I was given opportunities and to be a part of something and continue. So, as you can tell, I'm passionate about empowering people.
Yeah.
But it starts with the VTO. It starts with, and I put it this way, like slowing down, right, to go faster. I would imagine you probably have resistance sometime from visionaries who are like, what, like all day meetings, right? Like, do you? I would imagine.
Yeah, it depends, right? Like I would say that the people that are really in and are wanting to grow, they understand that they need to give up something to gain something bigger, right? And that's the mindset that is a big key in the process. And it's harder with people when you feel like you're kind of dragging people along and there's a reluctance to it. But part of that is hey, give some blind faith. If you really want to try this, give some blind faith, Clayton, and let's get through the first one, and then you tell me, right? Like, and then you start to see those light bulbs go off, and you start to see big questions being asked, and these things that even a visionary wakes up with at 2 a.m. almost freaking out about, right? And then in the span of a 6 to 8 hour day, 2 or 3 of those can be solved.
Yeah.
And you start to see them go like, whoa, why didn't we do this a long time ago? It's so simple, but yet it was on me as the visionary because I was unwilling to let go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. So just curious, with your 12-year-old, was that the first time you did it with him at 12?
Yes. Yeah. First time. Yep.
Yeah. Then my wheels are turning, right? It's like it's our 7, 5, 3. How old is how young?
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I'll just tell a quick story. We went to Mexico in February, all inclusive with my parents and my sister and her kids. And when we got back, the kids were like, like we should go back again. That was so much fun. We loved it. And so I told them how much it costs, right? And they're like, oh, that's a lot of money. And so I actually said, well, maybe you guys could contribute, right, towards going if you really want to go. And so we were talking, I live in Canada, right? So it snows a lot here. It's going to snow tomorrow, unfortunately. We were into spring, but not so much. So I was saying, like, yeah, you guys, because I took them out and we shoveled sidewalk or driveways. And I said, like, I was kind of teaching them to be entrepreneurs, right? It's like, hey, you guys want more money for Lego?
Yeah.
Why don't we go shovel some driveways? And I said, all the shovel, and realistically, I probably did at least half of the work. But I said, you guys have to talk to the neighbors, right? And my 7-year-old's like, I'll talk, no problem. goes to the door. He's like, "Hey, can we shovel your driveway for money?" And they're like, "How much?" Right? But anyway, I was doing something similar, even though I wasn't doing the VTO with him.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, yeah, if it's $1,000 or $2,000 to go to Mexico, like, let's break it down.
Yep.
Right? Like, how many driveways would you have to shovel?
Yep.
Right? In order to
Yep.
make that much money, or to
Yep.
buy the big Millennium Falcon Lego or
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
You got to speak their
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
Right? And even though they're 7 and 5, I'm seeing the wheels turning, and they're like, oh, we could, how much could we charge for a driveway? And so
Right.
let's do the math. What's $1,000 divided by that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's 60,
Yep.
it's 60 driveways or whatever. Okay.
Yep.
We do that. Like, how long would that take?
Yep.
And doing the math and breaking it down. So it's interesting. Even though they're 7, 5, and 3, and the 3-year-old really wasn't engaged in that, but it's the same thing with the leadership team, right? It's like, okay, our 10-year goal is this. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Thing with your 12-year-old, if you want this. So it's interesting, like, just seeing the wheels turning, and I don't know what the fruit of that's going to be in my kid's life.
Right.
I've seen what the fruit of it can be in your business.
Right. Yep. Right? Yeah. Well, and it
people engaged.
Yeah, it's such a mental boost, right? You said this before, to when you start stacking up those wins, right? And you start seeing the forward momentum, right? And you're not focusing on 30 things anymore. You're focusing on those 3 to 7 most important things, the rocks, right? And you're starting to get those done, and they're going away. And you start to, it feels good. Like, I'm a big to-do list guy, right? Like, I write all my stuff down, even if it's already done in the morning, and I just like, I write it down,
so
and I cross it off, because I'm like, yeah, like, there's a whole concept too of like why you make your bed, right? I think it was a Navy SEAL or somebody that wrote it, and it's like, it kicks your body into the gear of doing things, of accomplishing something, right? And it motivates you, and then you look at it even when it's done, and you're like, oh, I did that. That feels good, right? Like, it's the whole mindset of that. And then, as you said, as a team, like, then you start to go down that path, right, of saying, oh man, this does feel good. Can we do more of this? How do we do more of this? I want a couple more rocks. I want to, like, how can I help you get your rocks done?
Yeah. And I'll just add another thing about rocks. It's one thing when you're doing them within the leadership team, but now I'm starting to see in my current company, more people, other levels, are starting to take rocks. There's 70 people in this company. Imagine if every single one of them had a rock.
Right.
How much progress could you make in 90 days?
Right.
But you can't get there without slowing down, doing your VTO and then rolling out. I think that's probably one of the frustrating things for visionaries, is because they're usually impatient, right? It's like, okay, come on, hurry up, let's go. Right. But you do have to slow down in order to go faster. But now, instead of one person or 6 people, going fast, you could have 70 or 40 or whatever. And I'm excited to see, how far this company's going to go once we get that work done, and see the cumulative effect of the engagement and buy-in. It's beautiful. And even more so if you're going to feed 1 million families.
Even more so.
Right. Like, And I just say one thing, like, you can't, your ultimate goal can't be profit.
No.
Right.
I mean, it could be. I mean, like, it all depends.
Yeah.
Right? But
if you want, if you want their hearts, it's got to be something bigger than that. Profit's a byproduct, in my opinion, of doing great things and impacting lives. And profit also allows promotion and, pieces and stuff like that. So you do have to kind of, make sure that people understand how it benefits them too. So,
for sure.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. And you gave me lots of ideas. I take my boys
good
one-on-one camping trips every summer, and I just started those. And now I'm thinking, okay, how do I maybe implement parts of this, because they don't have the attention span to do it all, but maybe I can initiate some conversations this summer that will, plant the seeds for that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, man. I'd love to hear. I think any of that kind of stuff we can do with our kids, and for me it was less intentional about where he wanted to go. Honestly, my heart was to bring them into what dad does,
Mm.
right, and to show them that. And then the fruit was unexpected of like, oh, all these cool conversations. But it was like, dad, you don't work, you just sit in your office at home and do calls and talk to people, and like, and so it's like, okay, let's talk through this then,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would love to hear how that goes, Clayton.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's keep in touch with that. That'd be awesome. Awesome. So, Justin, if someone wants to learn more about you and what you do, how should they get in touch?
They can call me. I put my cell phone out there, man.
Yeah.
970-556-2348. If I call people back within 24 hours. So,
Well,
yeah, man, I'm not afraid to get called and have people reach out directly. So,
love it.
yeah, call or text. I'm on LinkedIn too, is another easy one. I'm fairly active on there, like you, and that's how we connected. So, those would probably be the easiest ways.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about EOS is the help first core value, right? Like, let's just help. Let's add value. Let's do whatever we can to help others move forward. Awesome. So, on behalf of our viewers, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your passion on this topic. I'm sure that it will be impactful for people who watch. So if today's interview added value to you, please subscribe to this channel for future interviews with experts in the world of business.